Awesome. So it's time to go. And our first speaker is to kick off this event is Diederik Martens. And as Diederik just said in the video there, he's the founder and CEO of Chap and Bright, who's a result-driven, tech-savvy digital company. So he's really passionate about MarTech and the whole area here. So he even wrote a book about it, as we had a question around marketing automation Untangled. And today he's here to speak around what does it take to improve your marketing automation game. With that, I'm so glad to have you with us here, Diederik. So take it away.
Yes, thank you, Jacob. Thank you for having me. Like I said, I'd like to share with you my best practices to make marketing automation and MarTech work. And as Jacob said, wrote a book about that, and it's about to be published. It's a new book, so go out and read it. And it all starts with today's world, and that is that customers expect us to be relevant now more than ever. And with Amazon doing near real-time drone deliveries, Netflix predicting what we want to watch, and one thing to consider is, in order to be relevant, we must first understand. But the pandemic actually accelerated digital, and digital behavior is much easier to interpret, and therefore we can much better understand the needs of our customers and prospects today. However, this led to a data-driven decisions culture. For the past 10 years, we're looking at data for predictions and making decisions. But more and more people are thinking about the humanistic side of marketing. How can those two worlds exist together? And if you combine that with the strict laws, the ever-improving laws in privacy, in data retention, and that people want to store less and less data about themselves, how can we be relevant if we cannot store the data anymore? Thinking about third-party cookies, even first-party cookies. How are we going to deal with that? Well, it's actually marketing technology that enables you to do exactly that. Because if we cannot depend on historic data, we need to act in the moment. We need to be personal in real time. We need to hyper-personalize. And marketing technology, like Scott Brinker will tell you, it's readily available more and more at a more affordable price point, so anyone can use it. And it's your possibility to make that work. And this will be the key driver to tune your revenue engine moving forward. So everyone dialed in this session, you are the marketing technology users. You are the business drivers of tomorrow. But in this well-known saying, a fool with a tool is still a fool. So you can have all the marketing technology in the world, but it doesn't equal success out of the box. What does it take to make it successful? There are just too many companies that want the results with shortcuts. But you cannot compete in a triathlon without the proper training. You need to put in the work to make this work. And these are the things that I would like to share with you today. And one of the things that I see when people start with marketing technology, when they start with marketing automation, is that they think, oh, I need the content, I need the technology, I need the processes, I need the skills. And they're like, oh, if one of those things isn't there, they are afraid to start. Another thing that I see is that they strive for perfection. They want to build the perfect result straight away. But that will create an unovercomable hill. You need to make sure that you layer things, that you build little things, that you start with a simple process, because you can only improve a process if there's one to begin with, even if it's just from A to B. Then you have a conversion rate from A to B. You have a time to conversion from A to B, and then you can form new hypotheses to improve that process. Maybe one of those hypotheses is that you need more granularity, that you need an A, B, C, D process. And in order to do that, you need to build something today that is not perfect yet, but in the future, you don't want to make sure that the thing that you built in the past is wasted. If you know, that's what I learned at Quintic. If you build something today for 50 people in a fast growing company, it still needs to work with 500 people in 3-4 years. Your requirements today might be this high, but in 2 years from now, your requirements might be this high. So select the right technology straight away, but don't pick the simple technology. Don't pick the advanced technology. Pick a platform that can grow with you, that has the ability to put on the training wheels. And when your requirements rise, you can take off the training wheels and not have to re-implement a new technology. And that's what I call the scalable mindset. And that's the first thing that I want to give you to make marketing technology successful at your company. So you now know how to start and overcome that hill. But with all change, there is no change without resistance. So how do you overcome that initial resistance in your company? Well, a lot of it has to do with the communication and how you pitch innovation. A simple example could be that you want to pitch and create a new CRM field for, I don't know, rejection reason when you offer a lead to your sales. Sales will automatically think, a new field, more admin to do. But another way to pitch this is to say, hey, I'm sending a lot of leads to you. Some of them are bad and you're spending a lot of time on those bad leads. What if I stop sending those? Oh, that sounds like a good idea. But then I need to know which leads are bad so I can improve my processes and no longer send you the bad leads. Let's create a field where you can log the reason why these leads are bad. You see how that works? It's called apply what's in it for them. Think about your users. Think about the audience that will be working with your technologies. It's a well-known concept, and that's the second thing that I want to give you to make marketing technology succeed at your company. So you know how to start, you know how to overcome resistance, but how can you really turn the tide? How can you shift sentiment so that you don't have to push and overcome resistance anymore? Well, things that might be small to you might be big, for instance, for sales. Imagine something like, I think most marketing automation platforms allow you to create a report based on inferred IP web visits. You can send that daily to your sales reps and they will see which interesting target companies visited your corporate website. To them, a very big deal. But to you, 5 minutes of work. Something simple like that can build alignment between marketing and sales. Another thing what you could use, for instance, is chat or conversational chat, where people already find the interesting things on your website, and then in real time you can connect them with the right sales subject matter expert at the company. You can take a screenshot of this later on, but there's a chat that you can try out on the website. And if you find the Easter egg, you get a chance to win a signed copy of the book, but that's something for later on. Let's move on. Another thing, a success is not a success until you've shared it. So whenever you have these small successes, share those successes throughout your company. And don't forget to share your failures as well. Make sure that if something doesn't work, you share that as well. In due time, things will change because all those success accumulations will align and create sentiment and a shift of sentiment and create alignment. And that's the third thing that I want to give you. Small success accumulation. That's the recipe for success. So you know how to start, you know how to overcome resistance, and then you know how to turn the tide. But as a result, people know how to find you. And what happens is, I think some of you that own a marketing platform or are on this meeting, you will know that people come up to you and say, hey, can you create this field for me? But realistically, who is more qualified to design the right solution? Well, I mean, the user does have some experience in the field, but you are the architect. So you need to investigate if the solution actually solves the challenge, and you need to unravel the reason why they want to have that new field. I could give you all kinds of cool examples on this, but that would take up too much time. But the idea is that you unravel and plow through. And that's what's called applying 5 times why. Again, a well-known concept. Google it. But It allows you to unravel a root cause and make sure that you design the right solution, the right process, the right architecture, and also prioritize it compared to other solutions. So I've given you a way to start, a way to how overcome resistance, a way to shift sentiment, and to make sure that when they find you, you prioritize and architect the right solutions. But still, some of you might still be struggling to achieve success. But how come? Well, it's all about balance. There's things like technology, processes, data, insights, change management. If one of them is out of balance, you might be struggling. And often this is in change management or in processes. And when you look at processes and change management, what I see happening a lot is what I call the toolbox trap. And the toolbox trap is that you implement a new technology or a new process, you train the people, and then magically think the world is going to change. But that's not the case. In order to change, there needs to be happening so much more. You need to help people leverage those new technologies and processes and co-create new things so that they come up with new ways of thinking. They start thinking out of the box, and that's when you get innovation. It's Harvard Business Review that said that digital transformation actually requires balancing 4 key talent areas. And those areas are not just technology. New technology means new processes that run different streams of new data. And most importantly, change management. You need to balance all 4 to be successful. But thinking about all of that, wouldn't it be nice if there was a recipe, a template for all the things that I've just shared? Well, after many years and many iterations, I came up with something which is called the CHAP loop. I also discuss it in the book. But the left wheel stands for strategy, the right one for the operations, and it's an infinite loop. So if you start in the middle and go down, you have new hypotheses for growth, for innovation. You then have to align your organization. You have to create business cases, pilots, and then you deploy something. And when you deploy something, what a lot of people forget is that even if it's something new, it's always replacing something old. So you're also migrating. And a lot of people are like completely tired and worn out when they finish the implementation and go live. But that's when things start. Then you need to leverage everything. And when you leverage everything, of course, you have your dashboards and your reports. That's all nice for the performance. But in the end, you want to look at success management and see how that hypothesis contributed to your business. And from that come new learnings, new hypotheses for the next CHAP loop to go through. And another thing, which is pretty important that I want to stress, is that innovation, especially with marketing technology, is about taking steps ahead. And sometimes you trip, but as long as you take more steps forward than you fall, you're moving ahead, you're innovating. But the idea that you could innovate without mistakes is just absurd. So if a company doesn't have a failure accepting culture, it can never innovate. So make sure for the leaders on the call that you accept mistakes, because if people are afraid to make mistakes, your company will never innovate. So rounding up, I shared with you how to apply the scalable mindset to get started with different types of marketing technology, including marketing automation, to apply what's in it for them, to overcome the resistance that comes with that, to share small success accumulation, to shift sentiment and turn the tide. I learned you how to ask 5 times why, to architect and prioritize the right solution, how to balance the 4 digital transformation talent areas, and to use the CHAP loop for continuous success and innovation, and stressing out that a transformation requires a failure accepting culture. And I really hope that these methods help you to become successful with marketing technology and marketing automation in the very near future. If you have more questions, you can use the Q&A on the side. We have a few minutes left for me to answer your questions. Also, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. If you have more questions, I'd be happy to also answer them after the event. So thank you so much for joining this session, and let's open up the Q&A.
Thank you so much, Diederik. That was so interesting to hear about your experiences in marketing automation and the whole journey here that you described. So if you have questions, please ask them in the chat pane here and we can go over them. And we have one question here from Ikea. How much time and money is worth investing into marketing automation 2022?
Well, that's a fair question. Well, depending on the business you're in, I believe that marketing automation is, let's say, the companies in every sector that are proficient in marketing automation are going to be the winners in that segment. So if you're not on marketing automation yet, I think 80% of B2B companies is already, or 80 or 90%. So if you want to invest in that, I would advise to if you'd like to survive. But I don't think it's a one-time thing. This is a continuous investment in tuning your revenue engine.
Yeah, that's interesting to hear. One thing I thought about when you were presenting is that do you have seen or made any mistakes yourself or on the client side that you have helped that have actually matured or forced you to make progress? Do you have any examples of that?
Yeah, well, yeah. I think when it comes to lead nurturing, I think I'm more of a technologist, from early days on, and that means that I was looking at way too mathematical. So, like I said, data-driven decisions versus humanistic marketing. So my nurture streams that I built early on were already data-driven. So like, I can make this little change and then the conversion rate goes up. But it was really mathematical in approach. And it missed the humanistic part, the human engagement in those nurture programs. And I think when I started to realize that, then engagement rates, went through the roof. And so, and of course, I made a few technical mistakes in the past as well. I think that's unovercomable, right? You need to innovate. So I tried a lot of things and I failed a lot of times.
Yeah, and that's, failure. I suppose that's what business research have realized the last 5-10 years, that failure is pretty much the prerequisite for success as well. So try to iterate, try again, set up a new thesis and push forward. So that's of course really interesting to hear. And we have another question here: how to most successfully balance and combine marketing automation and CRM systems. I suppose that might be a little bit about, should you use an integrated platform or do you prefer separate ones where you have an opinion on? Yeah,
I have an opinion on that because we do a lot of native integrations as well as a lot of custom integrations and a lot of middleware integrations. I think when you have a very stable MarTech stack, that native integrations make it easier to get started without being IT dependent, right? So if you have an internal IT department, if you don't have that and you need to outsource things, then a native integration might be really good for you. If you know that in the next 4 or 5 years you're not going to switch CRM or switch marketing automation, a native integration might be perfect. But if you know that in due time you're going to switch out your CRM system, or you're going to switch out your automation platform or any other technology, then a middleware solution where you do a hop and spoke kind of approach makes it easier to not overhaul and throw away a lot of things. Especially a lot of technologies, if you have a native integration, you're kind of married, and it's hard to unravel. So it really depends on the size of business, how IT savvy you are, and what your plans are for the upcoming years.
Great answer there. I always like when we can be a little bit, hands-on, and if we try to be vendor agnostics, and not only push the ones we're working with more or less on a daily basis. Which movers and shakers do you see in the marketing automation scene today? Any names, technology companies, or platforms that you especially would like to highlight for practitioning B2B marketeers to check out, and this is a player that might be on the rise and so on? Any names or any platforms?
Yeah, I think I mean, anyone in the enterprise knows the big few, right? You have Adobe's Marketo, there's the HubSpot, there's the Oracle Marketing Cloud, previously Eloqua. So these are kind of the enterprise players, I think, which offer solutions that you might need as an enterprise when it comes to like workspacing, partitioning, things like multiple scoring algorithms in parallel. If you need custom objects, if you need the high-end stuff. If you don't need that, and you don't ever try to become an enterprise, you don't have any growth strategies, then there is so much technology out there. I think Scott Brinker in his latest chart, there are like 8,000 or 9,000 platforms right now. I mean, I'm a little bit older. I'm not old, but older, but in the marketing technology space. I hope. And so I think I'm from the from that group that knows the Big Ten, right, in this space. And the advantage is working with the Big Ten is that there's a lot of consultants, there's a lot of certified people out there. That means that there's a lot of knowledge, a lot of communities where knowledge is shared, a lot of free consulting on communities. So if you take an established vendor, the chances are that you can find solutions to your the challenges that you face along the way. And if you pick a tool that only has 5 customers, then the chances are that if you fail, you have nowhere to turn to. So that'll be my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, well, a tough question there, but that was really good answered. And as you say, yeah, I also think it depends on a little bit on how risk willing or how pragmatic you are as a buyer. If you're in an established business where low risk and established a player is of high value, a little bit playing into the technology adoption life cycle.
Yeah,
there. I think
I
that
also know a lot of companies that have the growth hacking mentality. I think the chat loop, if I look back, it's like a combination of growth hacking versus agile software development. Kind of mesh those two together, you get the chat loop. But so I also work with companies that do growth hacking, like, oh yes, let's use a Google form, and then they use some Zapier connection, and that's all nice to prove a point and to create the business case. But at some point you need to scale and make it robust, and especially for companies that want to go IPO or something. Someone that buys the company doesn't want to buy some strings and thingy kind of company. They want to buy a robust revenue engine. So at some point you need to build something that is robust and not strings strings attack. Yeah,
I think that's great. That's a really good conclusion there, Diederik, that if you're established, let's go with some safer player there where there's a lot of consultants and a lot of knowledge in the market. If you're smaller and you want to scale and go fast, be more risk taking, try a new player that might give you an upper hand advantage and so on. But there's a lot of things going on. So thank you so much for your time and explaining this for us. It was awesome. And I catch you on the flip side, Diederik.
Okay, thank you for having me, Jacob. Enjoy the rest of the day.